Hello, good day everyone. My name is Mikbent A. Calusor, and the topic that is assigned to me is the desert ecosystem. Deserts can be found on every continent, with the largest being located in Antarctica that covers 5.5 million square miles, the Arctic, Northern Africa, and the Middle East. Among all the terrestrial ecosystems, deserts are very typical landforms due to their unique ecological conditions. Desert and near deserts area cover nearly one-third of the land surface of the globe. Deserts alone covers about 7th of the land surface. Desert ecology is the study of the interactions between both biotic and abiotic components of desert environments. A desert ecosystem is defined by interactions between organisms, populations, the climate in which they live, and any other non-living influence on the habitat. Deserts are arid regions, which are generally associated with warm temperatures. However, cold deserts also exist. This is the example of hot and cold desert. In cold desert, we can find the Antarctica desert, while in hot desert, the North Africa desert. We normally call deserts as sand seas or ocean of sands. Most of the major desert areas are the Sahara Desert, Arabian Desert, Kalahari Desert, and the deserts of Australia. All of the deserts lie between 10 and 30 degrees north or south of the equator. This is the photo of the Sahara Desert that is found on Africa, and the other one is the map of the deserts in the world, where it lies between 10 and 30 degrees north or south in the equator. Now, let us come to the several things which make up a desert ecosystem. These are the structure of the desert, characteristics of the desert, and the animals in the desert. The ecosystem is dependent upon the type of desert. Temperate deserts, also referred to as cold deserts, or hot or subtropical deserts. Hot deserts and cold deserts have different kinds of ecosystems. However, despite being very different, the two kinds of deserts have a few similarities. Now, let us come to the similarities of temperate and subtropical deserts. Both get fewer than 10 inches of rain annually, so it is very dry. Dry air is found in both kinds of biomes. Both have harsh living conditions that impact people or animals living there. Plants have adapted to having less water and harsher temperatures. Animals have also adapted the conditions as far as energy, food consumption, and when to get out and be active. Now, let us come to the biotic and abiotic components of the desert. In general, deserts are made up of number of abiotic components, including the sand, the lack of moisture, and hot temperatures. Basically, anything that makes up an ecosystem that isn't alive. However, there are also number of biotic components or biotic factors that affect deserts, which include living things such as plants and animals, The example of the plants that live in the deserts are the cactus, while in the animals that lives in the desert are camel. This is the cactus that lives in the desert. And this is the camel that lives in the desert.
Good day everyone, I'm Perlin Bicabagtong, Betulad AFA 3rd year. Now I'm going to discuss about the characteristics of desert, geomorphology of desert, sand dunes and soil in desert, temperature in desert, water availability in desert, and life forms of plants in desert. Characteristics of desert. Deserts are characterized by the following ecological factors. First, sandy soil and rocky substratum. Second, scanty rainfall and high evaporation. When we say scanty rainfall, it means that that particular place experienced very little or almost no rainfall. We all know that desert area received less precipitation because it has high evaporation. Deserts are so much dry, that's why rain evaporates quickly before it can hit the land. Next is hot and cold weather. The temperature and weather is extreme in most deserts. At daytime, temperature is so hot, and during nighttime, temperature is very cold and freezing because they are lack of insulation provided by the humidity and clouds. Next is prevailing wind action, and lastly, poor soil moisture and water resources. Let's come now to the geomorphology of desert. Deserts are created by changes in climate and an accumulation of sand and other rocky wastes. High proportion of desert floor is an erosion surface of a bedrock. Sand covers about 10 to 20% of the desert. The rest of the land consists mostly of gravels, boulders, mountains, and various types of soils. A desert landscape includes various landforms created by wind erosion. Wind erosion creates mounds of sand dunes and flat-topped hills. The sand bodies of desert are always on rolling motion due to the prevailing action of wind. Next is sand dunes and soil in desert. Dunes are large piles of wind-borne sand reaches a maximum height of 250 meters above the surface. Dunes show many shapes and patterns that change continually due to the highly active wind. Deserts are considered to be highly dynamic geomorphic features. Dunes are characterized by two-sided slopes, one along the windward direction and the other along the leeward side. Soil and desert regions are generally fertile but lack soil moisture to encourage plant growth. Temperature and desert. Climatologically, deserts are the hottest place in the world because they absorb more heat from the sun than any other land in humid climate. Deserts are mostly under-arid to semi-arid climate. The temperature varies during day and night. In summer, desert temperature often reach up to 38 degrees Celsius during the day. They dropped up to 25 degrees Celsius or more at night. During the winter, temperature in the desert range from 10 to 21 degrees Celsius. Water availability in desert. Another controlling factor of desert is the presence of water. Due to very scanty rainfall and sandy soil, deserts have no or very little possibility of holding water. Only in some depressions, very little water may exist. Soil moisture is a rare feature in desert, even if little soil moisture is not present. Due to hot climate and prevailing wind, it will be evaporated quickly. The drainage system in desert are arroyos and oases. Arroyos are dry streams. After rainfall, water fills the arroyos. They run down the mountains and cut away the land, carrying deposits of gravel, rocks, and sand to the bottom. Oasis is a wet and fertile zone in a desert with vegetation. Underground water came nearer to the ground surface. Open wells and springs do exist in such spots. Water that occurs within an oasis has been drawn through groundwater-based flow from distant catchments like mountains or hills. Because oases have some water, farming and settlement are expected in that area. Some oases may be small and can support only a few people, but others are large enough to support more. Life forms of plants and desert. The following three life forms of plants that are adapted to desert are the annual plants, the succulent, and the desert shrub. Annual plant which avoid drought by growing only when there is adequate moisture. Second is the succulent, such as the cacti, which store water and survive. Third is the desert shrubs, which have numerous branches with small but thick leaves to store water.
Good day guys, I'm Janjubilim Ano, Bitilid AFA 3rd year, and I'm now going to continue the report of Miss Sagadal, which is agroecosystem. So let's start now. Characteristics of agroecosystem. Agroecosystem are characterized by both planned and unplanned diversity. Plant diversity includes spatial and temporal arrangement of domesticated plants and animals that farmers purposely include in the system, along with the beneficial organisms that are deliberately added. Unplanned diversity includes weedy plants, herbivores, predators, microbes, and other organisms that persist in the system. After it has been converted to agriculture or colonized it from the surrounding landscape, both types of diversity have strong effects on agroecosystem, productivity stability, pest regulation, soil processes, and the movement of organisms between agriculture and natural habitats in the agricultural landscape. Next is concept of agroecosystem. So agroecosystems can be manipulated to improve production and to produce more sustainably, with fewer negative environmental or social impacts and fewer external inputs. Agriculture plus ecosystem equals agroecosystem. So agroecosystems are natural ecosystems that have been modified for the production of food and fiber. In contrast to the outdoor agroecosystem, the possibility of health effects from respiratory toxicants is of toxicological concern. Examples of relatively diverse traditional ecosystems include shifting cultivation, traditional rain-fed rice system, home gardens, and traditional shade coffee and cacao systems. One common traditional agricultural system is shifting cultivation, also known as sweeten or slash and burn agriculture. Shifting cultivation means a form of agriculture used especially in tropical Africa in which an area of ground is cleared of vegetation and cultivated for a few years and then abandoned for a new area until its fertility has been naturally restored. So shifting agriculture system of cultivation that preserves soil fertility by plat or field rotation. As distinct from crop rotation, the period of cultivation is usually determined or terminated when the soil shows signs of exhaustion or, more commonly, when the field is overrun by weeds. Let's move on to sustainable agriculture, a whole system approach to food, feed, and fiber production that balances environmental soundness, social equity, and economic viability among all sectors of the public, including international and intergenerational people. So, sustainable agriculture means an integrated system of plant and animal production practices having a site-specific application that will, over the long term, satisfy human food and fiber needs. Agroecology and the design of sustainable agroecosystems. First is combining the different components of the farm system: plants, animals, soil, water, climate, and people, so that they balance each other and have the greatest possible synergetic effects. Second is reducing the use of off-farm, external, and non-renewable inputs. Third is relying mainly on the resources within the agroecosystems by replacing external inputs. The last one is improving the match between cropping patterns and the productive potential and environmental constraints of climate and landscape. So these are all agroecology and the design of sustainable agroecosystems, which is combining, reducing, relying, and improving. So let's come now to last part, which is importance of agroecosystems. Agricultural biodiversity also perform ecosystem, which services such as soil and water conservation, maintenance of soil fertility, and pollination, all of which are essential to human survival. In addition, agricultural biodiversity ensures, for example, pollination of crops, biological crop protection, maintenance of proper structure and fertility of soils, protection of soils against erosion, nutrient cycling, and control of water flow and distribution. That's all my report. Thank you for watching.
Good day everyone, I'm Giselle Isagadal, a Bethlehem AFA third year student. So today I'm going to discuss about Module 9, Agroecosystems. So what exactly is agroecosystems? Agroecosystems are defined as communities of plants and animals interacting with their physical and chemical environments that have been modified by people to produce food, fiber, fuel, and other products for human consumption and processing. So agroecosystem is a combination of agriculture and ecosystems, wherein soils, climates, plants, animals, and other organisms and humans in physical space interacts to each other. So in agroecosystem, the roles of the farmer is to produce food products for human and animal consumption. They are responsible for all crops and livestock that are needed for us to survive. So in order to support the productive and sustainable agroecosystem functioning, farmers use a variety of techniques such as organic farming, crop rotation, crop cultivation, and etc. that provide mutual benefit, protecting wildlife, and support the health of the entire system, including us, the people, who work the land and communities whose well-being and economic stability depend on agriculture. So now let's move on to the components of agroecosystems. First is the primary producer. Crops and weeds of the field are the primary producer of agroecosystem. So this type of producer in agroecosystem, they form basis of the food chain by creating food through photosynthesis. The weeds and crops also act to shield the soil from the sun, which help to keep the soil healthy and provide sustenance to other organisms. Next is the consumer. Among consumer, grasshopper, aphids, bugs, ants, rats, birds, man, etc. are macro consumer. The frog, snake, hat are the micro consumer. So this type of consumers can give a negative impact to the soil, on soil and crops, and also can spread infection to your property such as the land, the soil, animals, etc. So now let's move on to the biotic and abiotic components in agroecosystem. The abiotic factors are temperature, air, water, soil, sunlight, and anything physical or chemical. The biotic factors include plants and animals, insects, bacteria, fungi, birds, and other living organisms in an ecosystem. So the biotic factors are all of non-living things in an ecosystem, wherein both biotic and abiotic factors are related to each other in an ecosystem. And if one factor is changed or removed, like the abiotic factors, it can affect the entire ecosystem. Because the abiotic factors or components are important because they directly affect how organisms survive. And now let's move on to the properties of agroecosystem. First is the productivity. It is net increment of values products per unit resources. So, for the production of products that an agroecosystem produces for human consumption, resources such as soil, land, and capital are required and must be studied carefully, especially the land, for planting crops. That requires a thorough study because apart from management techniques and capital, development of the production depends on land quality. Next is the stability. Stability is a degree to which productivity remain constant in spite of normal small-scale fluctuation in environmental variables such as climate or in the economic condition in market. So stability is the productivity should always remain constant or should remain relatively stable even in the face of disturbance such as the climate or the economic condition in market. And if this disturbance does alter the production of agricultural products, it should be able to bounce back quickly to ensure the production of quality of products. Next is the sustainability. Sustainability is defined as the ability of the system to maintain its productivity when subject to stress or perturbation. So sustainability is the capacity shown by agroecosystems to continue be productive over time, despite the existence of political, social, and economic pressures, as well as numerous ecological limitations. The sustainable agroecosystem play a role in bringing healthy food from fields to tables around the world for generations to come. The last one is the equitability. Equitability, it is a measure of how evenly the produce of agroecosystem is distributed among its human beneficial. So equitability in relation to agroecosystem, all living organisms should be treated equally because the more equitable the system, the more evenly are the products to feed shared among the population of the farm. So that's the end of my discussion. Thank you for listening.
Broadleaf forests. Broadleaf forests have large leaves of various shapes and have several types. Examples are silver birch, almost, glabra, etc. Thorn forests. Thorn forests are found in the semi-arid regions. What is semi-arid regions? Semi-arid regions are regions that receive 10 to 20 inches of rain per year. Another, thorn forests are have trees are scattered and are surrounded by open grassy areas. It can conserve water, have long and fibrous roots to reach water at great depths, reduce loss of water. Some species have small leaves and some have thick waxy leaves. Have thorns, protect plants from herbivores. Mangrove forests. Mangrove forests grow along the coast, especially in the river deltas. Are able to grow in a mixed and saline and fresh water in muddy areas. Uses of forest ecosystem. The uses of forest of ecosystem is for fruits, flowers, flood, medicines, wood, and fodder. Services of forest ecosystem. Services of forest ecosystem is it can control the flow of water, watershed protection, help increase groundwater level, prevent soil erosion, control temperature, absorb CO2. Threats to forest ecosystem. The threats to forest ecosystem is the following: deforestation, poaching, overexploitation of resources, development activities like mining and dams, changing land use patterns, fragmentation, and habitat degradation. Conservation of forest ecosystem. Ways to conserve forest ecosystem is use resources carefully, alternate source of energy for fuel, food, afforestation, NP and wildlife sanctuary, control population. That's all. And the last is be a part to keep the balance of forest ecosystem. Thank you.
Good day. I am Mar Anthony Balading from Bitilid I third year, and I will discuss the topic assigned to us, which is Module 9 Terrestrial Ecosystem. So, what is terrestrial ecosystem? Terrestrial ecosystem is a land-based community of organisms and interaction of biotic and abiotic components in a given area. What is biotic and abiotic, by the way? Biotic is also known as living things like plants, animals, fungus, bacteria, and protists, while abiotic is non-living things like water, soil, air, light, and minerals. What are the examples of terrestrial ecosystems? There are tundra, taiga, desert, forest, tropical rainforest, and grassland. Those mentioned type of terrestrial ecosystem will be explained in further discussion. And take note, a type of ecosystem found in a particular place is dependent on the temperature range, the average amount of precipitation received, the soil type, and the amount of light it receives. What are the characteristics of terrestrial ecosystem? It includes lower availability of water as compared to aquatic ecosystem, and the consequent importance of water as a limiting factor. Greater temperature fluctuation on both diurnal and seasonal. There is greater availability of light favored by transparent atmosphere. What are the functions of terrestrial ecosystem? Terrestrial ecosystems support most of our development from raw materials to food production. Forests make up 30% of the Earth's surface, provide oxygen and shelter for many land species, and constitute an important stock of carbon. Animals in terrestrial ecosystems are animals that live predominantly or entirely on land. Examples are cats, dogs, ants, and spiders, as compared to aquatic animals which live predominantly or entirely in water. Examples are fish, lobster, octopus, and other. Or amphibian, which rely on a combination of aquatic and terrestrial habitats like frogs. Some of the insects are terrestrial, such as ants, butterflies, cockroaches, grasshoppers, and many others, while others are partially aquatic like mosquitoes or dragonflies who pass their larval stage in water.